Welcome to the Game of Thrones podcast, the officially unofficial podcast for Game of Thrones on HBO. I'm Jim.
I'm Aaron.
And today we're talking about Season 5, Episode 3, titled High Sparrow. What'd you think of the episode?
So I've watched it like 3 times now, and I also had it on the background when I was working on some like pre-spoiler notes. And I like it quite a bit more. Again, a lot of my reaction was just a negative visceral reaction to a moment that I was really looking forward to kind of being handled in a way that I didn't enjoy. So, and I still have a problem with that, but not from the dialogue. Like, I don't really give a shit about, like, Ollie fetch me my sword works roughly as well as Ed fetch me a block. But I do like the fact that they entered that extra beat in the book where they're going to hang him, and then John hesitated, and even though it's from his POV and you're in his head, you start to think, oh, he's going to puss out. And then, no, he just does it in even a more badass way. And I think that's better than what... I still to this day think that's such a great fan service moment that they could have taken 30 seconds to drag that out and added that extra dramatic beat.
Okay.
I've been thinking a lot about how things are going with Sansa and Littlefinger and Ramsay, and I'm really kind of starting to get, I'm deep in my own fan canon with this, but trying to see how it matches up stuff in the books and get more excited about that. The stuff with Arya is like spot on as far as I'm concerned. It's maybe they're going a little too fast, but they're hitting all the beats. As a viewer, what did you think?
Yeah, second time around, once I got over how just get dark and kind of dreary and blah this episode is, it does a lot of interesting things. It sets up a lot of interesting stuff, and it makes you kind of think about where things are headed in a way that some of the other episodes haven't. This is a pretty good episode. Like, I'm not going to say it's great. It's not the best. It's not the worst.
Sure.
It's probably just above, I don't know. It's hard to say that it's above average for Game of Thrones because Game of Thrones is so consistently good.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
I think it's somewhere in the middle there.
And it is a piece-moving puzzle type of episode, and there's a lot happens. As I was watching it and getting my notes together, I'm like, there is just a lot of things going on all over the place, and we don't even touch on Dany.
Yeah.
We completely went away from Jaime and Bronn. If last I felt like there was 2 solid episodes of piece moving, and it took that long to move every piece that was on the board. That would imply that we've got a few episodes of some awesome stuff coming. We'll see. But yeah, I'm other than that slight problem I have with the way it was staged, directed, and written up north of the wall, I'm pretty pleased with how it's going.
Okay. Who ended up directing this thing? We know who the writers and creators are, yeah?
Yeah, David Benioff and D.B. Weiss, although I do think that next week is the first week that they don't actually...
Oh, wow.
When I was compiling the writer and director, I think it's a different writer.
Okay.
And they don't usually typically write every episode.
Sure.
But Mark Mylod, I think that's how you pronounce his name, he's a British film producer and director. He is famous for having directed Ali G's In the House, which is the movie version of the Sacha Baron Cohen film.
Totally prepared him for Game of Thrones.
Sure.
Right there.
Oh, it gets better. He co-produced the HBO television series Entourage and directed 23 episodes of that. And he also directed and executive produced the pilot episode of the U.S. version of Shameless for Showtime and has gone on to direct 11 episodes. This might be part of the problem, because none of that experience, none of that screams Game of Thrones.
No, certainly.
And there were a lot of really Game of Thronesy shots, like the one that really sticks up in my mind is Brienne and Pod on that bluff overlooking Moat Cailin.
Very cool.
And some other things of that nature. The sweeping shot of the Shamble City on the bridge of Volantis. A lot of good stuff, but I just wonder if maybe he missed a few beats here and there that's kind of got my hackles a little up. But it's written by the Double D's, so what the fuck? I mean, surely he didn't just see like, oh, they're going to hang him there. Nah, no one's got time for that. Just lop his head off.
No,
Get your sword, lop his head off.
Editorial cuts.
We don't got time to make all kinds of nooses. What? No, I mean, so a lot of it still got arrested the Double D's, and it's inexplicable. Inexplicable why they decided to streamline that little part of it. But
okay. Well, let's not dwell too much on that. Let's get into
Please.
the recap.
Yes.
We start off inside the house of Black and White, where Arya is watching as Jaqen gives. I'm going to call him Jaqen. I know
Okay.
he's a faceless man. He doesn't have a name. His name's Jaqen, for
Sure.
all I care right now.
It's going to be confusing if everyone's
Yes.
no one here.
If I just call him a man,
Yeah.
well, Arya's starting to be a man. This girl who comes into her chambers is a man. Like,
Well, no one doubts the veracity of no one's claims to be no man when no man walks in and asks them what they're
Very
doing.
confusing.
Yeah, it's going to get
Sure.
really weird.
anyway, so Arya watches as he gives someone a cup of water from this basin that's in the middle of this room that she's sweeping the floor of. She wants to know when she'll be trained. And Jaqen's like, I'm doing that right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. If you don't realize that you're in the training, like we said, you've never seen Karate Kid.
Yeah, like Valar Dohaeris, Arya.
All men must serve.
Yes, this is not, and I really like the fact that she wants to join the Faceless Men to serve herself, and that's what it's always been about. And he's like,
It has.
Before you even get to that, he didn't even say that. Like, I sometimes wonder during this plot whether Arya really knows what she's getting into.
Yeah,
Because
it's questionable.
This is
certainly.
like the Faceless Men don't give a shit, or well, maybe they do. I don't know enough about it, but I don't feel like they especially give a shit about what's going on in Westeros.
That's a good question.
Because who is there? Who are they serving? Mm-hmm. The faceless god. Who we see the Stranger, which is the aspect of death of the Seven. We see the Drowned God, which is the god of the Ironborn, where if you are baptized in Ironborn, you literally are drowned and then brought back to life with some kind of primitive version of CPR. I mean, this is a very death-oriented cult. Mm-hmm. So war and tragedy and all that, I don't know that they have a problem with.
Yeah, I don't think that their motives have been made clear at all.
Yeah.
I think they are a force that is still up in the air.
Sure.
And we're getting less and less of those as we go on here.
Yeah.
I think Melisandre is another one. I'm not quite certain what she wants.
Yeah.
Tree Man.
Sure.
Up with Bronn. We haven't seen Bronn at all this season. Or sorry, not Bronn. Bran.
Yeah.
Excuse me for
not enough fiber in our viewing diet. I think
Yeah.
I just think it's interesting that so many people are rah-rahing about, Arya becoming an assassin, which we've talked about last season, like how
I think it's cool.
complicated that is to like root for that for a
Sure.
little girl. But then if you add in, does Jaqen really give a shit about what she wants? Or is he trying to turn her into something that's going to serve his purposes and ideals?
Sure. Like all of the kids in this universe,
Yeah.
Tom and
Well,
like everybody's being
Isn't
coerced
it interesting
in
that
some way.
every one of the Stark kids has some sort of mentor figure that we're either openly skeptical of or have no idea the motivations? Bran's got his tree naked diaper dude. Sansa's got Littlefinger. I guess Rickon's got Asha, although that feels like it's in good hands. And then we've got Arya being shaped by Jaqen. I think that's interesting, especially since all of these, and Jon Snow has got Stannis. Mm-hmm. It's interesting to see, how they all started with this thing where they all had pups, and they've got this kind of thread that's running through all their stories. I don't know what the significance of it is.
It's weird to me to say, man, I understand that Stannis is the guy with the claim to the throne, but it is so hard for me to get past the idea that both Davos and Melisandre are working for what they see as the goal. Whereas Stannis has a clear path that he's going to King's Landing. He wants the throne, all that stuff. But he's being led around by Melisandre. And then Davos is working behind his back in a lot of scenarios to sometimes get what Stannis wants and sometimes not.
So I think
Stannis strikes me as a king that puts up a good front.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I don't know that I feel like he has as much authority as he thinks he does.
I don't know that because it's a very curious take. I've never thought that, and it might be because I'm a book reader, but my understanding of Stannis is that he has his own agenda and he uses anything that is at his disposal to get that agenda. Vagina magic, if it works, I'll use it. But I'll also, I do think he does want to serve the realm.
I think so.
Like
Yeah.
he's wanting. I think that was perfect that someone said about you want the Iron Throne, but what you need to do is protect the realm to get the Iron Throne. You want to get the Iron Throne to protect the realm, but what you really need to do is protect the realm to get the Iron Throne.
Okay.
So, I think that he looks around the map and he sees that he's the best man. He's got the best claim, and he's the best man for the job. And it's hard to argue. Where
But
you've
his
got the
arguments are
Boltons and
falling
Lannisters
flat, right? I mean, he goes to John and he says, "Hey, I want you to do this for the realm." John says no.
Yeah, but
And then Davos comes behind his back and is like, "Oh, I think you should reconsider your vow," and all this stuff. And like without Davos, I don't know that Stannis would be getting his way. It's like Stannis feels like he's just kind of fumbling through this, and Davos is picking up the slack. Melisandre's picking up the slack with her blood packs.
but part of
Like,
being
I don't even
effective
know.
effective leader is realizing your weaknesses and shoring those up with other people. You know.
No, I get it. It's just he doesn't realize that any of that stuff is going on.
Bullshit.
With Davos, you think he had Davos sit
You
back
really
and say,
think Stannis walked out the door, looked over his shoulder? Oh, Stannis is gone. Where did he go? I don't know. Something. I mean,
I think Davos did not ask to do that, certainly.
well, Davos doesn't ask. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, again, it feels like
Walking in that room and saying that's part of the plan is weird.
that's. I don't think it's. I'm saying it's part of the plan. I'm just
Okay.
saying that having Davos be kind of the good cop is something that they might have worked out, or that might be something that Stannis realized in the soul searching he did in season 3 about whether he should go full on to Melisandre or full on to Davos. There's a little bit of cop out because at the end, Melisandre herself said, "Hey, Davos still has a part to play," so he kind of had an out. But I kind of feel like that they've worked out this good cop, bad cop thing, especially when you're dealing with. It's like Davos or Stannis lets Davos deal with the smugglers, and he lets him deal with the bastards, and he knows he can command a certain type of man, and he might need Davos's lighter touch to reason with others.
Okay. Let's talk about all men must die, all men must serve. Valar Morghulis, Valar Dohaeris.
Yep.
I know that these sayings did not originate with the Faceless Men, but I can't help but imagine how strictly they apply to the Faceless Men.
How do you
from
think
what we've
that?
seen.
Why do you think that?
This idea that he gives this guy a cup of water and he appears to die. I don't know if he's actually dead and is going to come back, or if this is, like I said in the instant cast, I think this is some kind of ritual that passes you from regular dude to the Faceless Men.
Indeed, mild interest.
So the all men must serve, all men must die sort of thing ties right into that. Like you have to die to serve, or vice versa.
So it's kind of like the snake eating its tail situation.
A little bit, and I know it's not something that originated with them, but I can't help but think that the show is trying to tell me that is a big part of this whole thing, because that is how they greet each other, And I realize it's a High Valyrian thing or whatever.
But that's just the language they speak. I'm not
know.
sure where you're getting the whole. I don't know that this originated with them, because as far as I'm concerned, it might have.
If you want to say that they're,
I don't know if that
a
is
faction that is trying to preserve the
I don't know
culture of the Valyrian. Sure.
So I don't know if that's a Bravosi thing, or if this is a uniquely House of Black and White, Faceless Man, God of Many Faces philosophy.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at.
It feels to me that the Faceless Men is a religious organization, but they also, do other things as well. I mean, obviously,
feels like it's also a very practical.
Yeah, I mean,
organization.
they're all-star assassins, in their worship that happens to involve killing people. So.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't help but hear those words and think, a lot of people look like they're dying in this episode.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You could be forgiven because, that scene in Qyburn's dungeon laboratory is eyebrow-raising, to say the least.
Sure. Let's move on to Cersei. She and Marjorie are being transported through the streets of King's Landing to the royal wedding.
Before we go on, I had a lot of people ask me about some various geographical questions about Westeros and Essos. And since we're transitioning from Essos to Westeros, I figured I'd take this opportunity. A lot of people, I think this comes up about once a year. What is Essos's relationship with Westeros and as vis-a-vis the Narrow Sea?
Okay.
And if you look at a map of Westeros, like its narrowest part is approximately the same width as the widest part of the Narrow Sea. And also, it's handy to find out that the wall is approximately the same length of that narrowest part, maybe a little bit, maybe a little bit wider. In the books, it says the wall is 300 miles long, and Sam said last season in Misa that the wall is 500 miles long. So there's a little bit of controversy there, but you know, whether it's 300 or 500 miles at its widest part is kind of immaterial, because it seems like Martin is trying to set up a geographical figure where you could believably cross it for mercantile purposes and to do like send messages and things like that. But it's also believable that you couldn't just take a military force willy-nilly over there.
Okay.
And then down south where Dorne is at, you've got like this archipelago, whatever, a kind of island chain stretching from Dorne to the southern tip of Essos. So it's like, at its widest part is 300 to 500 miles long, but at its narrowest part, you know, you could probably just skip between islands and never lose sight of land. Okay. Someone else asked me if there's anything to the west of Westeros or east of Essos, and I did some research, and it appears not. And I think that is essentially like asking someone from the 1200s in Europe, is there anything west of Spain? Mm-hmm. Is there anything east of China? They'd be like, you know. Yeah. It's there be dragons.
The edge of the world, sure.
Yeah, so that's the kind of the boundaries of the known world. And also, Bravos is at this northern tip of Essos, and it is the same kind of latitude as the Twins or the Erie. So it's kind of like it's at the southernmost border of what they consider the north of Westeros. Westeros goes way north, and that's why the north is cold as hell.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Bravos was that far north.
Yeah, you know what? I actually thought it was further north. Because it'd been a while since I looked at the maps. I kept a map of both when I was reading the books because I was really trying to get a sense of the place. And I'd forgotten that Essos was actually way shifted south compared to Westeros.
Interesting. Okay. So we go to the royal wedding, and Cersei's not very happy about them chanting Marjorie's name in the streets. Tommen and Marjorie are wed in this scene. It's a fairly short scene. Yeah. Just showing Cersei giving them the stink eye most of the time.
Because we got to get to the sweating, heaving, underage sex.
We do, yes. Later on, they consummate the marriage. Afterward, Tommen confesses he doesn't feel guilty about his brother dying and making him the king. And he feels bad about that. He feels weird about not feeling bad about it.
Yeah, sure.
Marjorie tells Tommen that he's Cersei's baby boy and that she will never let him go, let him out of her sight. And I don't know. What do you want to say about this before?
It's just a great manipulation of this kid that, you know, whether you think he's 14 or I actually looked it up, and the actor is 17 years old. Okay. So whether you believe, how old you believe him, saying you're a mama's boy is not sexy. It's the opposite of what he wants to be to this woman, this older woman. So, and it's great because she says nothing but good things about Cersei. Of course. And they're all natural things. Like, of course a mother would be protective of her son when it's the only blood she has left in the city and she's lost her husband and her father and her eldest son. Like, it's all natural, but what she's doing is just, you know, wrapping this kid around her pinky finger.
Yeah, and
or
it's interesting.
Other parts of her anatomy, whatever.
It's interesting going to the next scene where Cersei's basically trying to do the same thing.
But it doesn't work because he was there first. Too late.
Yeah.
Plus, you're never going to side with your mom over your...
No, of course not.
...hot bride that you just married.
Of course not.
That does nothing but blow sunshine up your ass, so...
Yeah. So it shouldn't be too much of a surprise when... But he's trying to get her out of there.
And Cersei did try. She was like, oh, she smiles all the time. Do you think she's smart? I just can't tell. I mean, those are far less. I mean, she's just not as good at this as Marjorie is.
She's not.
She's fighting with her vagina tied behind her back, which as a Lannister, she doesn't have to.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm just saying. It wouldn't be unprecedented.
Yeah, let's add another layer of creepiness on top of that.
Why not?
Top of the 14-year-old boy.
Why not? But she's already fighting with that behind her back, with not being able to compete on that level, but she's just not as good at the underhanded, passive-aggressive dig.
Yeah, this whole series of scenes is interesting to me.
Yeah, because like the next scene, Marjorie just completely schools her ass in the underhanded, passive-aggressive compliment.
She does, but I wonder if she goes too far.
Well,
Because Cersei is not going to take that laying down, certainly.
but recall previous episode, Cersei referred to Marjorie as that smirking whore
Oh, yeah.
from Highgarden.
No, but
so there is no. I don't think there's any scenario in which Marjorie could get in good with Cersei. I really don't.
Of course not. But to just
Antagonize
jab her so many times over and over in this next scene where she comes and she's basically saying, hey, I've got support for you, whatever you need, let me know. Of course, that's disingenuous.
No.
She doesn't actually. But Marjorie takes those opportunities to punch her again and again.
I feel like
in
Marjorie
many
thinks-
different ways, both through her child. It's kind of disgusting what she does there. Even though I don't like Cersei and I don't sympathize with Cersei, I think it's maybe this power is starting to go to her head a little bit too much. Like she feels, oh, I've won this battle. It's over. There's nothing Cersei can do.
That's the thing.
And so she antagonizes her. And I think that's a mistake.
Let me ask you this:
Given the way she walks out of that scene and the look on her face.
What weapon do you think Cersei could form against Marjorie?
An undead mountain? I don't know.
But I'm saying like it can't be that gross. She can't just storm into the queen's room
of course not.
and kill her. That's the thing. Like that's I think why Marjorie thinks she's won is that she feels like utterly secure as long as she doesn't. I mean, Marjorie could fuck things up, sure.
Yeah,
she could do something stupid, and ruin her power with the king. But as long as she has that, I feel like she thinks she's secure. And I was just curious to see if you had any ideas of what Cersei might try. I mean, the undead mountain is one, but I just don't think that would work.
Sure. I don't think so either. That was a joke.
Okay.
I think possibly she might use the sparrows for this, because they have a very right and wrong sense of the world.
Sure.
If they perceived something to be wrong or a sin against the gods, they would apparently go after that person wholeheartedly. So I wonder if there's any way she can spin her new relationship with the quote-unquote High Sparrow to cause Marjorie some problems.
Interesting.
I don't know where that's going to lead,
interesting.
obviously, but
okay.
It's a new relationship she established during this episode after she had that conversation with Marjorie. So
Right.
And I have to say, if I were trying to poke holes in that, I would probably say the sparrows were brought to her, not the other way around. She didn't go seeking them out. That was just kind of something happened to fall into her lap. But I could totally see Cersei turning that to her advantage.
Courting the sparrows?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, we've kind of talked about several of these scenes here, so I think we should just go over to Winterfell.
Yeah.
Reek sees some flayed bodies being hung up, and we go inside to the castle.
Sure. They're flaying people, and that's not good. But they are rebuilding Winterfell, which is kind of cool.
They are, yeah.
The Boltons giveth, and the Boltons taketh away.
Sansa's gonna like that, right?
Sure.
Roose tries to counsel Ramsay on the politics of alliances because he's just out there flaying people, thinking fear is the way to go.
This isn't the first. Correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes this blends together in the books and the series. But this is not the first time they've had this fucking conversation.
I don't think so. No,
I'm pretty sure he said that before he did the whole "you're not a bastard anymore."
The Moat Cailin
everything
scenario,
the light touches is our kingdom. That scene, I feel like he tried to give him that lesson there too.
He did.
And here Ramsay goes off and flays all the Cailins.
Well, right when he got back, when Roose returned, he didn't know that he had, done all this stuff with Reek, and he was like, "Oh, you can't lead with fear." This is the same speech, roughly.
Yes.
And then he showed him Reek, and he was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I'll ease up a bit."
Sure.
Because he's got this new pet, which is going to be valuable to
But
us.
I never thought that he actually won that argument with his father. Is just more.
He did when he took Moat Cailin, right? I mean, that's kind of proof in the pudding.
Sure, but doing that to an Iron Islander that the North, I mean, they hate as much as anybody. It'd be like castrating a Lannister. Like no Northern Lord's going to give a shit. You start flaying the Lords of the North, and fair point to Ramsay. He spat in my face, said he's not going to kiss a traitor's boot, and fuck you and your taxes. I'm not, plus look at me. I've got this shitty mud hole with spears sticking out of the ground. What kind of taxes I'm going to pay? Here's 5 pounds of shit and 3 pounds of mud. Go on your way. I mean, I don't know what you do in that circumstance.
You flay the people, and then they pay their taxes. Apparently,
I mean,
you flay
that
the father
seems
and the
like-
mother and the brother, and
Yeah, Roos
Boom.
said, well, he left you with no choice, which you could read as him just smoothing things over, but I kind of think that maybe that's what Roos would do too.
maybe.
Although you also have to wonder whether the Lord of Moat Cailin would have done that if Roos himself had showed up versus his bastard. His up jump bastard son.
You've got to imagine that a lot of people still have the idea of Ramsay as a bastard in their head, right?
Sure.
And even though he's got the paperwork and the documentation, see, guys, see, I'm a lord now.
Right. Well, I mean, it's
pay me some respect.
Yeah, and I don't know how you. That seems like a very Tywin thing to do too. Like Tywin would do. I mean, he wouldn't flay them. He'd probably just taken their heads. But
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's the thing. You don't flay them. Sure, you execute them. Maybe you don't flay the whole family and make the son watch.
These public executions are going to be a problem. Yes. I mean, Dany's doing it. Ramsay's doing it.
It seems like we've, as a civilized society, moved away from them, and it's overall been a good thing. Like we're living longer, we're healthier, we have the internet and free pornography. We didn't have those things when there was public executions.
It's true. Correlation. Anyway, there's a couple of cuts here that are interesting. The least interesting is probably the cut from this meat wagon to the table where meat is being carved.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a stylistic thing, not trying to say anything about cannibalism or what's going on at this place, but I thought it was interesting. And then the smash cut from this scene to Sansa, where he's talking about, I forged a marriage alliance for you, and then boom, right to Sansa. And then they spell it out in this next scene, obviously.
Sure.
Where Sansa and Littlefinger are outside Moat Cailin, and they are stopped there. Littlefinger says, hey, I've arranged a marriage to Ramsay Bolton for you. Not for me, for you. And she's very angry about this, for good reason. For very good reason. But Littlefinger has a conversation with her and basically tells her to stop being a bystander in this show. Like, fucking do something, Sansa. We've been waiting 5 seasons for this shit. Let's see it. And she comes around.
It's not, like I said, I was doing some speculating in a spoiler cast that kind of wondered if things weren't going down this way and talking to people on the forums, and now it looks like it's going down this way, and I kind of like it. As I mentioned, Instant Cast, we've seen what Sansa can do by accident.
Okay.
You know, if she's now like fully on board with Littlefinger's plan, is no longer got the stars and hearts in her eyes about honor and gallantry, and she can just help him scheme. Like you think of you said you're running out of colors. I don't know what you would call a red/purple wedding at Winterfell. But you can think of kind of mayhem
a gray wedding.
That you could think it's the kind of mayhem that a Sansa could wreak at something like that if she was actually literally helping Littlefinger or being guided by Littlefinger. But you could also see that Littlefinger could just be selling her out.
Yep.
And there's a lot of hints that Littlefinger's playing a very dangerous game.
This fucking smile at the end of this episode, man. He got exactly what he wanted. He convinced her to go marry Ramsay for this alliance that we see him and Roose talking about later. Yeah, I don't trust anything about Littlefinger. I don't know that he has Sansa's best interest in his mind.
You shouldn't.
Okay.
I mean, he said in the very first season that he is not one to be trusted. And the man he told that to, he stabbed in the back. So you shouldn't trust him.
I don't like seeing Littlefinger smile, period.
What I love about this is pitting Littlefinger against Roose.
Oh, yeah.
Because, man, they're equally as ambitious. They're equally as intelligent. Perhaps, I think Littlefinger is bolder.
I think so.
Like Roose he's like, I'm not going to let go of this branch until my hand's on another one. Where like Littlefinger will roll the dice and be like, I'll swing in the darkness.
That's the thing, man. And
that can be good or bad because if the bold strategy always wins if you're right.
It does.
But the patient strategy is there to capitalize on when the bold strategy flames out.
Yeah, it's to reduce variance, right? Like,
sure.
You need to be pretty sure if you're not willing to take massive risks or know you're right.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta play it a little safe, and you're right. Roose Bolton is a little safer.
It's not by much because again,
he killed
betraying
Robb.
Robb. If that went just like if a few more Northern Lords survived that, or if Rob was able to
Or
get
if
away,
Walter Frey just changes his mind a little bit, like has last second change of heart, you're dead probably.
or if Tywin just decides to pull a Cersei and is like, "Fuck you," and you're a deal. Like all the Northern Lords just come and kill the Boltons and the Freys, and there you go. So it's not like it's not like I'm saying he's milquetoast.
No.
And Littlefinger's Tarzan. I'm just saying that is the difference between them.
Yeah, I mean, Littlefinger is the all-in kind of guy here. I mean, if you're sitting all these guys down at a poker table, Littlefinger's all in every hand.
Yeah, Roose is the guy that goes to Vegas with $500. As soon as he wins his $500, as soon as he wins his 500, he takes that, puts it back in his pocket, and then gambles with house money. Exactly.
All right, let's go over to Brienne and Podrick because they were surveying the trip through Moat Cailin from a cliff,
which is a spectacular scene.
Yeah, really good shot there. And that Moat Cailin, it's definitely a moat. It's disgusting looking around it.
Well, they would have called it Butthole Castle, except for that actually was already taken.
Who's the Lord of Butthole Castle?
It's the littlest finger of the fingers, actually.
Okay.
They named it as a joke.
Brienne and Podrick are talking. She asks him how he became Tyrion's squire, and he tells that story. And then Brienne tells the story of how she came to serve Renly. And her story is a lot better, I gotta say.
I don't know. I thought it's interesting that Pod is kind of like this aimless youth that, he kind of wanted to be a knight, but he got with one drunken lord. Yeah, no, but he was saved by his name.
He was,
because he's somehow related to Sir Ilan Payne. I can't remember exactly how. Which is a longtime Lannister loyalist. He's no longer in the show because the actor suffered from some kind of throat cancer.
Why didn't they just recast him?
They kind of did. He essentially Bronn essentially took his role.
Oh, okay.
As Jaime's kind of sword practice partner, which is better from a narrative economy standpoint anyway. The good news is the guy who played him apparently fully recovered.
Oh, awesome.
But they had already changed the plot, so I don't know where he still gets residual checks or what. He didn't have any speaking lines because the man had no tongue in the book. So
well, if Game of Thrones is anything like the Padres, then yes, he did. Anyway, I like Brienne's story a lot better.
Yeah,
with her recounting of this ball she went to where she was trying to be paired up with a bunch of princes and such, and it didn't go well. And Renly stepped in and made her feel not as shitty.
Yeah, and it's interesting that if you meet Gwendolyn Christie in person, which we have had the pleasure of doing, she is stunning.
She's fucking tall. Like, make no mistake.
Yes,
my God.
Yeah, she's several inches over me, and I'm not a small guy.
Yeah.
And she's just really stunning and very attractive. Mm-hmm. And I was marveling at this scene, how really brutish they made her look. So it sells that story because she's a fashion
but it's still
model.
Just totally. It doesn't totally sell it.
Do you?
Like,
you
I'm
don't
looking
think
at her,
so?
I'm thinking she's not ugly. She's not. She's covered in dirt. She's got some artificial bags under her eyes. She's not ugly.
You know, it's interesting because in the books I've debated that too, whether she's really ugly or whether she's described as ugly because we're seeing through the lens of her being this nonconformist type of woman. Because when you read the books and she's got full lips and big blue eyes and blonde, it's like, this doesn't sound ugly to me. And Arya is also described,
her perception of herself,
and others too. And Arya is described as very ugly, as like Arya horse face and this and that. Yet when third parties describe her, they compare her favorably to her aunt Lyanna, which is one of the most beautiful women in Westeros. So they play a lot with that, the POV perspective versus the actual perspective.
It's interesting.
So I think it works because if you squint, you're like, yes, I can see where she would describe herself as this mawkish or gangly mule, but you can also see the beautiful person underneath.
The great lumbering beast. Yeah, I can maybe see where they're saying.
Did you know that Jason, who is our buddy from the Walking Dead cast, he actually, I think last week released the audio of our interview with her.
I heard about that.
Yeah, I'm going to link that in the show notes for this podcast. So if you're curious to see us have a 45-minute conversation with Gwendolyn Christie, check out his, I forget what the name of the Game of Thrones podcast is, but it's something Jason C is doing over there with Karen and a couple other people.
Just started up this season.
Yeah.
So we find out also that her secondary goal, which I think we kind of knew, is to avenge Renly by killing Stannis.
Sure.
We all kind of knew she was in it for that, but her primary goal of protecting the Stark children has taken over.
We talked a little bit about this in the instant cast, but I really like the fact that she acknowledged that she knew Renly is gay.
Yeah.
Because it's a little, I want to say it's a lot more ambiguous about whether she realized that in the books, especially like before Renly was killed.
And I think that makes his gesture even more meaningful, right? He's not in it for himself here. He is in it completely for her, just to make her feel better.
He had no dog in the fight, and he helped her out. And he's also the second, the man is good looking, and he's the king's brother. He's arguably one of the most powerful men in the kingdom, and he shielded her from all that. So it's loyalty born of seeing someone being kind, and it really sold the whole how much she hates Stannis, and how she says, I think the line was, "There's nothing more hateful than than failing to protect the ones we love." And I'm like, Jesus Christ, Gwendolyn is amazing. And the guy who plays Pod is actually, all he's got to do is look serious at her, but he does a damn fine job at that.
Yeah, learn how to dismantle a set of armor.
Yeah.
All right, so we go to Stannis and Jon up at the wall, and Stannis comes to him to find out what his answer is on the offer he made him last episode.
Yeah.
Jon says no. And he asks Stannis how long he plans to stay at Castle Black. Stannis says, I'm out of here in a fortnight, and kind of leaves the fate of the wildlings to him after suggesting that he send Sir Alistair away.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, hey, I'll take him if you can get Tormund to join me, but you can execute him, or you can feed him, or like, I don't give a fuck. They're either in my army or I don't care about
I'm doing this in a fortnight regardless.
Yeah. So I like a lot of what they're doing here. The one thing I don't necessarily like, I really like the fact they're putting Ollie as a steward, because, we've seen him be traumatized by these wildlings, and having him in the room puts a face on, we hear about the Black Brothers don't like this, the Black Brothers don't like that. But, he is now a Black Brother, it seems.
Seems like it.
Yeah, I mean, to be a steward, he'd have to take the vows.
Yeah.
So he's got very good reason. And we as the viewers have a lot of reasons to see the wildlings as not necessarily a benevolent force, or at least a lot of them. But no, the only thing I don't quite agree with is that I never felt like there was any menace behind Stannis. Like,
Toward Jon?
Yeah, you're the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. That's great. You have a few hundred brothers. I have thousands of mounted men. I could end you all if I wanted to, and no one really give a shit.
Yeah, but
no one north,
right. He doesn't.
No
make
one
that
south
point.
of the neck would ever give a shit. And there was a lot in the books. There was a lot more tension and danger. Like, John's is very self-assured, and he's sitting behind his desk, and it's your grace and your Lord Commander. And I never felt like there was a threat of Stannis bullying him. And maybe that's because they don't have time to. You already kind of hate Stannis, and making him be a bully would like.
I don't hate Stannis.
I feel like
I don't fully understand Stannis yet, I guess.
Most book readers like Stannis in a way that the show watchers don't, because he is not given time to really develop. So if they give him a defining trait as being a bully, then I feel like that maybe pushes the mental calculus a little bit too far, that they don't want to do that. Maybe.
It also makes me question, now that you're saying that, it makes me question that nod that he gives Jon after he beheads Janos. That felt a little out of place in this episode for me.
Really?
Like, I don't know why Stannis would necessarily be, giving him the okay on that.
Well,
or saying, good job, buddy.
Yeah.
But if there was a little bit more pressure from Stannis to do certain things, then maybe that would have made sense.
See, I thought it made sense just from his talk about mercy, and you gave this guy mercy, and it wasn't your place to give. And then I thought they were kind of like, Stannis is like, you learned your lesson. And also,
okay.
Not Janos, God, Davos. He's saying he sees something in Jon that's kind of like a nod of like, I was not wrong about you.
So I don't remember the exact circumstances that led to, I think it's the first episode where Ned beheads a guy.
Yes.
For
deserting the Night's
honorable
Watch.
reasons. Okay.
Yep.
Does Stannis give the nod there? Because, I mean, Stannis is telling him in this scene that honor is what got your father killed.
Sure.
It's kind of a fool's errand, and now he's doing these same things that his father did, and Stannis is giving the nod.
Yeah,
I don't know where that puts me.
I mean, Stannis doesn't have a problem executing people. He just burned a man
Sure.
alive.
I
So,
agree.
like, I don't
yeah.
think he sees that as this isn't John preserving honor. This is John preserving order and
Yeah.
not being a bleeding heart, you know. And I think that's what Stannis was. He saw potential in him, but he wasn't sure if he was really tempered steel, if he had that
Yeah,
backbone to him.
This is right after he gives out, or is this before?
What's that?
I think this is before he gives Alistair his position. This discussion here.
It is.
that we're on.
It is.
But the nod is certainly after he gives Alistair that position, and he does it for honorable reasons and reasons that Stannis thinks are foolish. To the keep your enemies closer thing that John says doesn't resonate with Stannis.
Right.
I don't know. I guess a nod is appropriate. Just a simple, tiny little gesture versus like a discussion.
Tiny.
It was very tiny.
Like, in fact, the first time, because that's,
he could have just been falling asleep. I don't know.
like a big component of the block was also the nod in the books that, he gives this a nod to John. And it's, I think if we didn't have a nod, it would have been like big trouble in Booktown. But no, like I said, I thought that was fairly well executed. And where are you on the position of this shield that guards the realms of men business? Because I've been having conversations with people, and there are some people that know absolutely John has to stay at the wall. That's what his vows. And then there's other people like on the Davos side where if you're sitting up freezing your ass in the castle while murderers and rapists and thieves are running around running the seven kingdoms, are you really guarding the men? Are you really guarding the realm?
I think Davos makes a great argument here, especially. So what is the history of the Night's Watch? Why are they guarding the wall? Is it just because the most imminent threat to the realm was the north, the winter?
Well,
is that why they were assigned to that position, or is there some other reason?
I mean, that's another weird thing, is that a lot of the reasons that the Night's Watch are in existence are shrouded in mystery. Like no one can even tell you how the wall was built. There's a lot of myth, but like we're talking about stuff that supposedly happened thousands of years ago.
Would Jon Snow, as a member of the Night's Watch, know the history?
Yeah, I mean, they
like,
know
does he
that
have
it's
a secret guarded
it's
history?
the White Walkers and all that, but most people think the White Walkers are mythical beings. Now, like the further south you go, the more mythical. Like a lot of people down south don't believe in giants.
What are giants?
And like the Night's Watch certainly believes in giants.
Oh yeah.
So, the Night's Watch is to guard against that. The wall was built as a direct result from the White Walkers menacing and almost destroying all of Westeros.
Man, John's in a tough place here.
That's the thing.
Excuse me, because
Stannis doesn't believe
he's
that
got to
either.
go in two directions.
Right.
Like if he actually believes that the realm is not safe from the people within the realm, and that there needs to be some justice brought.
Sure.
He's got to go south.
Yep.
If he wants to protect the realm from the impending winter, he needs to stay north.
Sure.
I buy Davos' argument.
Sure.
I think that is a fair way to read those words.
But the White Walkers are real.
Yes, I know that the White Walkers are coming. Winter is coming. They're going to need a force to protect them from that. I don't know if human beings can even protect the realm from that. I mean, who knows? Sam's killed one. Great. Yep. Wonderful. The other thing is, who is to say what's wrong in the realm with the people in the realm? I know it's in turmoil, but why does Davos so firmly believe that it's not going to draw itself to a reasonable conclusion?
No, I know. Well, I mean, obviously because it's self-serving. But yeah, I mean, you got a very Wilsonian, isolationist, Lord Commander Wilson would definitely espouse that theory of like, hey, we could intervene, but it's just as likely our intervention would fuck things up as our staying away from it.
Yeah, I'm not even going that far. I'm saying like, who's to say that the powers that are coming to power or are currently in power are like, what is it that is happening that is so bad within the realm?
Yeah.
Right now, yes, there's a lot of fighting in the north. There's a lot of prep for fighting in Essos, but not a lot of that has come to like King's Landing. I mean, yeah, Joffrey's dead. I applaud that though.
Sure. But there's also hints that the harvest haven't been so good and winter is coming, and there's a lot of famine. I mean, it's the real thing is what is the real war? Is it the war of the Seven Kingdoms or is it the war of the White Walkers? And the other thing I was disappointed at, honestly, is that Jon couches this in terms of honor and duty and serving the wall. Why can't he say like, yo, these White Walkers be real? That, you know, they never mention that.
What do you mean, to Stannis?
Like, yeah, like if
say, hey, we need your armies up here?
If Jon is really worried about the White Walkers, then he'd be like, fuck, here's how much I'm committed. Fuck Winterfell. You all need to help me garrison all these castles, and we need to get ready for winter because it's coming, and we need to make a final stand. It's not about adding your army, the wildling army to you. It's about you adding your army, and all of us men that have seen this and believe this. We are the only ones that are asleep or that are awake at the wheel. Everyone else is asleep. We need to do this, and there's none of that urgency.
No, you're right. You're right.
I mean, at least like him to present the argument and like Stannis roll his eyes and be like, whatever. You know, the fact that he didn't advance it, that's the strongest argument in my mind. And he's letting letting a professional military force depart his midst without even advancing an argument.
So you think he's convinced then that Davos is right?
Who, Jon?
Then he needs to go help, yeah.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. Like, that is completely absent in our experience here.
I thought you were saying that was an argument for that position. Okay, yeah. I feel like we have explored that topic thoroughly.
Yes.
So
this will probably be one of the longest podcasts because there's just so much stuff to unpack here.
There's a lot of stuff.
Podcast as long as the wall.
I'm glad that Jon doesn't just give in to the pressure to get his family name back, because like I said in the instant cast, I think that dishonors both him and his family.
Sure. And it's a power. I mean, like, everything we've seen convinces us that this is an extremely appealing thing. Like the fact that he's a bastard, the fact that he was never as good as his brothers in his own eyes.
He desperately wants that.
Yes, this is his literal dream. Before, I mean, he settled for being a black brother because that's about as best as he could do as a bastard. But getting offered this is just incredible.
All right, let's move back to the House of Black and White, where a man who's a girl comes into Arya's room and plays the game of faces, which appears to just be beating Arya until she cries. I can't even tell what the answer she wants is.
I thought thematically it was cool because she beats her and she says, I'm no one, and then finally she goes, you're about to find out, and reaches for Needle. Which is the one thing she can't let go of Arya Stark.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thematically, that implies that she's never going to be really no one.
Certainly.
Until at least, you know, I mean, I guess we're looking to see whether she finally ditches Needle. Yeah,
and we know that she doesn't in this episode.
No.
She hides it in the rocks.
Like, it would seriously be like, seeing her ditch Needle into the Braavosi Harbor or whatever would be seriously an emotional moment.
It was emotional for her, even thinking about it.
Sure.
Anyway, Jaqen comes in. He puts a stop to it. He points out, you're surrounded by Arya Stark's things. How did no one come to be surrounded by all this? Sure. I like the way they said that.
It was really good.
Yeah. Then Arya goes outside, tosses all her possessions into the sea, except for the sword, which she hides in the rock.
I actually love the device of Jaqen being like a man and a girl. It's very Yoda-esque, like distinctive. Without being distracting.
Well, it's Three Musketeers is what it is.
What?
All for one, one for all.
Oh,
that sort of thing.
No, I like it. It's really cool. It's very rare that you can kind of get a pidgin dialect or something like that without it being distracting or annoying. And it just, not only that, it's somehow cooler.
Yeah, and I like how they take this list of people that Arya wants to kill and this sword and tie them so distinctly to who Arya is, because she doesn't have much of an identity outside of what she plans to do.
Sure, and we're watching her.
The needle is the means to get her that.
We're watching her
vengeance.
Discard all of her Arya possessions except for Needle, and it'll be interesting to see if we hear the prayer henceforth.
Yeah,
because those are the things that she has maintained that we can see of Arya.
Absolutely. Back inside, Arya's sweeping the floors when Jaqen shows up and leads her to a room where they're washing the body of a person who I think is the person who drank from this basin.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How do you have an underground dungeon on a goddamn island?
I don't know how you build that. especially in these medieval times. But
I mean, dragon magic. We're just gonna say dragon magic.
yeah, why not?
Okay.
No, I think it's more like money magic.
Money magic.
Like, Bravos has so much money that we could build an underwater.
The famous sump
basement.
pumps of Bravos. They run day and night.
Sure, why not? So she begins washing the body, trying to become no one. Apparently. And
what do you think? What do you think they're doing with those bodies after they wash them, Jim?
I think they go in an incinerator.
Really?
Because they're no longer needed. And Jacket is some kind of spirit creature. I don't know, man. That's the thing. Like, he could be anything.
All right.
He's as mysterious to me as the dragon magic and the Melisandre fire magic.
Okay.
Although I think this group of people is a little more grounded in the physical reality of the world. I don't know that they can actually destroy their bodies and be spirit creatures. I think maybe
it's just on the border.
This is some kind of paralysis that they go through, which I don't know, maybe gives them time to think and time to fully understand what it means to be no one outside of their body without the ability to do anything.
Do you think this is something Arya herself will go through?
It's like a meditation sort of ritual. I think, yes, if she wants to become a faceless person, faceless man, she needs to go through that. I think that is part of what makes you a faceless man.
Mildly interesting.
Okay. Sansa arrives at Winterfell, and she meets Roose and Ramsay, her apparent future husband. And Ramsay's number one girl does not look happy with that.
No, she doesn't.
No.
That's scary. And again, Theon lurking in the background the entire time.
Yeah, trying not to be noticed.
Conspicuously. Like, he has no lines. He never makes eye contact with anyone, but he's always there, skulking about.
Yeah, and it seems like there's some residual Stark love here, because when she gets to her room, a woman greets her and says, "The North remembers."
Oh, yes. Got chills. That's the one line. That's the one line I think they got right.
Huh, okay. So, super significant line for later, or just within the meaning from the scene itself?
The significance is entirely embedded within the line and the scene itself.
Okay.
The North remembers.
I'm sure you would not lie to us at all.
What does the North remember? I mean, and what does that mean? And how is that consistent with Northern philosophy? I mean, these are all things that you're supposed to be thinking about as part of the end game. Yeah.
Okay. Jon holds a meeting with the Night's Watch, and he makes Alliser the first ranger, and he gives Janos the Grey Guard, but Janos tells him to go fuck himself.
Sure.
In no uncertain terms.
Yeah.
Jon takes him outside and cuts his head off. Boom.
Yeah, what an asshole. Like, being made the lord of a... Like, yeah, it's a ruin, but you're going to have 10 of the builders, so go fucking supervise and build yourself a castle. Like, that's
This is like when the property brothers take you around to a house that's kind of fucked up, and they go, no, we're renovators, we'll fix this for you. And he's like, no, fuck you, I don't want it.
I'm just saying that, like, Janos is an idiot, and we're supposed to think he's an idiot, and he is a mess of a human being, but it's just like, I just gotta say, like, that's just so stupid. That's a sweet, sweet offer. Get Alistair Thorne deserves the first ranger spot by virtue of his career. Janos Slynt doesn't deserve shit.
Yep.
He was essentially a high-class pickpocket in King's Landing, and a sycophant and a backstabber. And I wonder if that part of his resistance is that he knows that he couldn't do this.
Maybe.
Like,
and that he would fail.
I have no idea how to actually lead men if I can't bribe them or... look the other way.
Or I'm not standing next to an actual leader in Alliser.
Yeah, or I'm not the left hand of some better lord than I am that can get things done. Either way, massive miscalculation on his part.
This scene felt very un-Martin-like.
How so?
In that I got exactly what I wanted.
Okay, sure.
I wanted to see this man's head lopped off.
Well, it felt very Martin-esque to me because I did not.
Wait, you didn't want this to go down
I did.
Exactly
I wanted the two-stage execution.
Okay.
God damn it. I wanted the hanging. I wanted the indecision. I wanted the moment of awesome. That's all I wanted.
All I wanted was his head, and I got it.
You got it.
Got it.
I think that's going to be...
I was just waiting for the moment where, like, Jon Snow's head comes off somehow. I'm like, of course, it's Martin.
Right. No, and then again, it's not the wording. Like, again, I don't give a shit about that. It's just I thought the rhythm of the scene was off, and part of that might be my own expectations, but knowing that I think there was a better rhythmically and more interesting from just the rise and fall of our attention and our tensions. I don't know. I'm just a little disappointed.
Okay, I think we talked a lot about this scene.
We talked about the nod
scenes,
the nod that was promised. So.
Then we go over to the High Septon, who is in a brothel. He's picking up whores. When the Sparrows bust in, strip him naked, and parade him through the streets.
Did you get it that the man is masquerading as the father? That's actually Oliver. That's the male prostitute.
With Oberyn, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's
and with
Oberyn and with Loras.
Yeah.
With all those.
Sure, I recognized him.
Okay, cool. Because I didn't the first time I was watching. I was just like, who's
Doesn't he
this?
he falls over and the mask comes off of him, right?
I think one of the Sparrows yanks his beard off and then slaps him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, slaps him to the
All right.
floor.
Yeah.
Do you think that every once in a while the High Septon chooses the father to worship?
Maybe.
It doesn't matter.
I'm sure.
Doesn't
Probably.
matter.
Yeah. Maybe he's just like Oberyn.
He likes the cousin it girls, apparently.
I guess so. Yeah.
A stranger. That would be fucking weird.
Yeah, hair over your face.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyway, he then goes to Cersei to find some justice, and she asks who did it and where to find him.
Although I also, we haven't mentioned this in either cast, and it was super funny to me when they forced him to march naked and started beating him and making him exposed his privates. He's like, so when did this stop being sexy for him? Like, maybe this is just the extra service he's paying for. You do know the naked parade and the humiliation and the whipping streets extra, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I can afford it.
I've got these rocks. They need to get off.
The other really funny thing in this scene when he goes to Cersei's, the hands chambers, I guess is where they are.
Mm-hmm.
The High Septon doesn't know Qyburn's name, which I thought was pretty funny.
And it doesn't matter.
He's like introducing himself. Oh, you and you. Oh, I don't know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what the Maester is up to, the Grand Maester, because he's like, oh, man's affairs ought to remain private.
I think that's just a funny callback to him
Is it?
being
Okay.
a decrepit old man, but he's really getting down with the ladies in secret.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, that's what I
also the side eye that Cersei gave him and held for like 3 seconds was just great.
Yep.
Just great.
So Cersei then goes to the High Sparrow to see him, and she talks with him for a while and basically condones his actions, and he seems to be surprised by that she's not there for some kind of retribution.
Sure.
There's a lot of stuff in this scene that's kind of giving us a glimpse into the society that is the Sparrows.
Mm-hmm.
This guy has been labeled the High Sparrow by outsiders, does not feel like he wants that name, feels that everybody is equal in this thing.
It's very Christ-like. I mean, the whole
Sure.
the ministry to the poor, the the lowest is as important as the highest. I mean, it's very very Christian themed.
Okay. I have a hard time reconciling that with the hierarchy that is most religions, but sure.
But he rejects that hierarchy.
He does, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
The religions certainly don't.
I mean,
And-
Jesus did, like, they fucking tried to crown him, I don't know how many times, putting him on she-asses and laying down the palm fronds and anointing his feet and all the time.
Jesus is a stand-up guy, but
Sure. So I'm saying,
what has come?
do you think this High
after?
Septon is a stand-up guy? Do you think that he is as pious as we're led to believe and benevolent as we're led to believe?
I don't know about benevolent, but I certainly believe him when he says that he does not like to be viewed differently than any of his other sparrows.
What about his reaction when he allowed that perhaps, it's like you have to Lance Boyle and it's not pleasant and how, but perhaps they could have been more careful with the blade. Seems to be a repudiation of exactly what his sparrows did. Right? They're not even his sparrows,
I think so.
what his fellow sparrows did. What do you think he would have seen as justice? Like, where did they go too far? Like the physical striking?
I don't even know. So it seems like he
Leaving
got
him beaten and bloody at the end of it?
Yeah, he got a pretty rough treatment at the end.
But on the other hand, if the guy just quit cupping his junk, and let everybody see what he's working with, he might not have gotten beaten so much.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But that's the part that I think he didn't agree with. I think the humiliation was what he was going for.
Sure.
The public knowledge of what this man's doing, that sort of thing.
The
sins that he's committing.
The other thing that I wonder is if you have, I mean, this leaderless movement, right? And that's kind of been an interesting thing in this internet age. Like, who do you hold responsible for people that commit crimes under the names of a leaderless movement?
Yeah, especially if he's
all he's got to say is, "Well, that's not something."
Disavowing knowledge and condemning the actions. Yeah,
right. That is.
I mean, that's a problem even in very hierarchical structures.
Sure,
like the Catholic Church, things like that.
But at least there's someone you can plausibly hold responsible, because it's like, okay, this in the chain of command, like they can try to dodge it, but there is a chain of command, and someone needs to take responsibility.
Yeah.
In a leaderless organization, when you're dealing with this amorphous or completely absent chain of command, if everything's flat, then every good thing can be claimed as your side, and every atrocity can be said, oh well, that's not, it's the one true Scotsman.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Fallacy. So I think that's going to be interesting to see how they do with this. I finally recognized after the third viewing where I seen this guy before. He plays General Perone in Madonna's Evita musical movie. So
I know I've seen him in other places.
Yeah, but that's the one that's like,
I've never
jumped
seen
out
that.
at me. Yeah, no, really?
No,
you don't watch Broadway musicals?
I've never seen that. No. The other thing that
Sparrow Perone.
The thing that Cersei says about the faith and the crown being the two pillars of the kingdom, holding it up, and if one falls, the other does as well. You can really have as many pillars as you want, right? Labeling them pillars is arbitrary, and
that would be another fallacy, the false dichotomy.
Yes, well, that's not really a false dichotomy, but
Isn't
it? Dichotomy is saying this or that must be true.
Okay.
This is more like just arbitrarily labeling things that you like as good.
Sure.
It's almost like some sort of bias. I don't know what it is exactly, but
it's the back scratcher's bias is what
false.
It sounds like. It's like, hey,
scratcher's bias.
Yeah, I'm helping you out here, and I'm telling you how important you are, and oh, hey, I'm important too, so you need to help me.
I mean, she could just as easily label, I don't know, the citizenry as one of those pillars, right?
Sure, or journalists.
Yeah, there's any number of things you could label as a pillar. She just chooses the ones that are most convenient at any given moment.
Sure.
I thought that was at least worth pointing out. So then Cersei goes to Qyburn's chambers and tells him to get a message to Littlefinger. Also, the mountain moves.
He really does. It really does. I blamed the High Sparrow's faith the size of a mustard grain.
Mm-hmm. You can move mountains.
Just to keep the Christ imagery going. What did you think? So I thought it was awesome, because I thought it was, they're being so brazen in showing that there's something going on where it's only hinted in the books.
Oh really? Okay.
That something like this is going down. I don't know. People miss it. Like after you've read the theories and you see it, like it's like, okay, well obviously, but I think a lot of people on a plain reading without the benefit of the internet would miss the fact that the Qyburn's doing something untoward with the mountain's body. To what end?
It's made very obvious in this episode, or in the show even up to now.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I thought it was obvious, and like kind of shockingly so when they had the big body there in the sheet. Mm-hmm. When they got it twitching, it's like, wow, they really think some people are dumb here. Where
pretty easy, yeah.
Where is the mountain who sits on a slab, lays on a slab? Where's he going in this plot?
Man, wow.
I keep asking you about.
That's just such an open-ended question. Like, I feel like to know that you have to know Qyburn's motives, and I don't know enough about Qyburn yet to tell what his motives are.
Sure. Do you think he's just a lackey of Cersei?
No.
All right.
No, he's too slippery for that.
Okay.
I can't get my head around who this guy is really, but we'll see.
One thing I'm super interested in is what the hell the message to Littlefinger says.
Yeah, it's something immediately.
Something immediately. I mean, I'm assuming that Cersei has not heard about the Sansa stuff.
I don't think so.
Even though Littlefinger's being shockingly open about it, as we discussed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what would she be saying needs to happen immediately that would reach him at the Erie and would use his powers of, I guess, warden of the East to I can't think of anything.
I suppose it could be simple as just get back here. I need your services.
I've got an idiot as master
thing.
of the coin. I'm bleeding.
Or that, yes.
I'm bleeding money left and right. I need you back here with your whorehouses.
We're eating potatoes. The wine is gone.
Yes, yes.
Come back.
Yes, I need you to rub two gold dragons together and make 3.
It could be that simple, but something tells me
ever
it's not.
is.
Not in this world. But I don't know. That we're not supposed to know yet. I don't think. Anyway, Ramsay thanks Littlefinger for bringing Sansa to him and promises, I will never hurt her, in his weird Ramsay voice.
Do you buy that promise?
No, of course not. He's Ramsay Bolton.
Good, because this, again, I guess I should have said mild interest, but come on, who am I fooling?
Yeah.
Ramsay, again, this doesn't happen in the book. Santa doesn't get married to Ramsay Bolton, so I don't know what the fuck's going on. But I'm saying Ramsay's promised not to hurt somebody. I've seen him promise. I've seen him claim to be the rescuer of someone that's. It's his mind games. Now the only thing I think is he on Ramsay's side? Is he still loyal to his father? Can his father still? At what point does he fuck you, old man? I'm gonna flay and do whatever I want.
So I see.
And how does Miranda, the head of the torture horrors, how does she fit into all this?
I don't. That final question, I don't know. I have no kind of inkling what might be going on there. I view Ramsay as a character who is grateful for being given this lordly name, this noble name.
He did seem genuinely touched.
He did. And I don't think he's a complete psychopath, but I do think he has tendencies and desires that he's drawn toward inexorably. I don't know that he can resist being the Ramsay Snow.
Plus, he's a good actor.
He is. Yeah.
Now, Theon was inclined to believe it, but he completely took him in and seemed very sincere about being an a loyal Iron Islander and loyal to the Greyjoys. So it's him. I was pretty swayed by him being so touched that his father would elevate him from bastardry. But then I start thinking, how many times he's played other people and how cruel. He might be a sociopath. I know he is a sociopath. Fuck,
I don't think that's very.
I don't need the DSM 4 or 5 to diagnose the man.
No,
he's a sociopath.
I agree. Then Roose comes up and he and Littlefinger have a chat about the political ramifications of Sansa's marriage. And Roose gives him a message from Cersei and kind of questions his motivations and I guess his wisdom as well. This is going to stir up some potential trouble.
See, and there's got to be something negative about that because Roose gave him enough rope to hang himself because he's like, well, what about the Lannisters? Aren't you worried about the Queen? Littlefinger's like, fuck the Lannisters. They're dead. Their power is waning. And then he's like, bam, look at this message.
Yeah.
And then, like I said.
But Littlefinger has a good response for that. I mean, the last time the Lords of the North and the Lords of the Erie teamed up, they took down the most powerful force in whatever he says.
The Targaryen dynasty is roughly ruled for 300 years over 7 kingdoms that had never been conquered. So impressive. But on the other hand, I thought Roose had a good response, which is, let me see me in on that response.
He's not a dumb man, certainly.
No.
I would probably do the same thing.
And Littlefinger, his look like shit. How am I going to? I mean, I wonder. Can Littlefinger win a game of poker against Bolton with his cards face up? That's essentially what he's going to have to do here.
Are you sure his cards are face up?
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is this: he at least can't hide what he's saying to Cersei.
Okay. Yeah.
For as long as he stays in Winterfell, anyway. I mean, I guess he could get away from Winterfell and send another raid. I mean, there's lots of things he could do, but.
Well, the Cersei thing doesn't seem to be part of his plan. It's part of whatever Cersei's plan she dreamed up is.
Sure.
That's just kind of a side tour for him.
But it might say something incriminating or making Roose believe that
sure, it could be like a Jorah sort of thing, right?
Yeah, or it could just be like, maybe Cersei's done and over with, but she doesn't think she is. Mm-hmm. And could still be a problem for us both.
It could. It could. I can't help but assume that Littlefinger, being as okay with risk as he is, isn't going to at some point make a bad play or
Sure.
just get beat by a better hand, if you
Yeah.
want to use the poker analogy.
Yeah.
Go all in at the wrong time. And that definitely feels like how things go down
Sure.
in in the realm. Anyway, Reek is trying to avoid being seen by Sansa in this scene, which is kind of interesting as well. I wonder what would happen if he's seen by Sansa. I don't really know.
It's a damn good question.
It's not something I've given much thought to, so I assume we can move on. Tyrion's going stir crazy in the wheelhouse and decides he's going to get out at Volantis.
The emailer's last week observation that these guys are like an old gay couple has destroyed their scenes for me.
Oh, God.
Because I can't see it out of any other lens. Like, just,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of your goddamn face.
It's a perfectly good face.
Yeah, oh, yeah? Well, 20 years ago, now look at you.
Oh, my God.
No, it's just, Tyrion is, what's interesting about this is you always see his Tyrion as the one down, he's the always been looked down on because he's he's a disappointment to his father. His sister hates him because he's responsible for the death of their mother in a roundabout way. All these things, and you've always felt sorry for him. But here you see kind of like what an entitled shit he is. Like, yes, you are a dwarf and all that, but you also were one of the richest men and most powerful men in Westeros. And he, like, tell Anne Frank this shit. Oh, you can't stand to be in a box? I mean, his life is in danger, and he just does. I mean, it was driving me crazy in these scenes. What a stupid idiot he was being.
Sure, but how much does he care, right? I mean,
There's
his whole speech along this road is, I'm going to drink myself to death.
You're right. I mean, part of this could be
The world is shit sort of thing.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of this is probably just inadvisable risk-taking because he does not care.
Yeah.
But it's still hard to watch because
I agree.
I really like Tyrion, and I don't want to see him dead. And
Me either.
He is acting like a complete fool.
He is. So he gets out, and they, wander around the city a little bit, and we can talk about some of that later. But they end up in a brothel where Jorah is wallowing in pity here, self-pity. And he spots Tyrion and captures him, claiming, "I'm taking you to the queen."
So we skipped over one of the where I think is an important part, which is this discussion, this meeting of this priestess of the Lord of Light.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Varys was making very clear how orderly that the Volantis takes their slave trade, and everything's rigid, and this guy's like, they make sure it's tattooed and everything's just precise. Yet they are allowing this openly very seditious talk of the Queen of Dragons overthrowing the master, and I used to be a slave like you, and now look at me. That just happened in the streets.
Yeah. That's weird.
It was very weird to me. Like, what the hell? Are the Volanti like ruthless slavers, or they thumb up their ass, or maybe I guess you can be both. I mean, Joffrey was classic cruel thumb up his ass kind of guy. But I thought that was interesting. The very significant look between those two.
Yeah, there is. I don't know why.
Okay.
Because as far as I know, they've never met. He talks about another person who was like her in another city, but not as good looking.
Right.
It felt to me like this scene was to show us that despite Dany's actions in the previous episode, she's not lost all goodwill with slaves across the land. And I don't know if that's because the message has not gotten there yet, or if it's because it didn't have as big of an impact as it looked like on her reputation.
It could be she's like undergoing a Batman-esque transformation into a symbol that's larger than herself.
Okay.
I mean, there's.
I mean, she is referenced specifically, but yeah, if
I feel like they're openly asking us to consider things through these messianic lenses by having, the High Septon talk the way, or the High Sparrow talk the way he does, and Tyrion is like, oh, it's the chosen one. You should have told me. They're inviting us to look at these comparisons and asking us to think about it in those ways.
The other thing they're doing is inviting us to wonder why Tyrion will not fuck this whore.
Oh, well, before you get to that,
Okay.
Another mention of grayscale in conjunction with stone men.
Yeah. Just a different name for it
Yeah, I feel
in a
like
different land.
Yeah, I mean, it seems consistent with what Gilly was describing their appearance as, and Tyrion helpfully translates it to, oh yeah, grayscale. Good luck with preventing that. But more talk of grayscale. Interesting, mildly interesting.
Maybe it's tied up with the winter. I don't know.
Could be.
Anyway, so he won't fuck this whore. My opinion on this is he doesn't want to have a repeat of the Shay situation. He is.
Well, could be he had his heart on Daenerys ass Titgarian and can't get her, and
Jesus.
it's just you're not going to, if you got the queen, the mother dragons on your radar, you're just not going to choke down to some skeptical mind. But no, yeah, he's.
I think my explanation is a little more on the nose.
Well, I think it's mildly interesting, Jim.
Okay,
we'll have to see.
Yeah, I mean, we've been shown how much he regrets how that all went down.
It was a crime of passion.
This
isn't something he coldly planned to kill. He was a shock to find. I mean, there was already the betrayal of her turning against him and turning state's witness against him in a trial for his life. But then to find her in his father's bed after his father has all his entire life punished him for his whoring impulses, and it broke him. And like I said, I hate to see him in this self-loathing, self-destructive manner, but it's not like he didn't earn it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And that's the episode, basically. I mean,
ends on an imp napping.
I can't imagine that this is what the road to Marine looked like for Varys when he said that's where Volantis goes.
Sure.
It's probably an alternate route, a side road. I wonder if Varys is going to catch back up with him or not.
It's a good question.
I don't think Varys knows that he's been abducted or anything like that.
And you think, I believe from the instant cast, that you see this thing with Jorah as just straight up trying to get into Dany's goodwill.
I think so. I mean, if you say I'm taking you to the queen, he doesn't mean Cersei. I can't imagine that he means Cersei. His queen is Daenerys.
What? But before,
unless he's just really jaded with Daenerys at this point.
I'm just saying,
but it doesn't look like it.
Just okay. To point out the facts. If we just deal with the facts,
all right.
He was a slaver that got caught, and he fled justice and going to Essos and became kind of an amoral sellsword. And up until he fell in love with Dany, that's who he was. So, I think we're clearly shown to expect him to go to the queen, but your alternate take of taking to Cersei would be consistent in this character as well.
I think he's more invested in Dany at this point.
Okay.
And for Cersei to do what she does to him, although I guess that was Tywin that did that, sent the letter that got him kicked out. Yeah, I just can't imagine that his queen is anyone other than Dany at this point.
Yeah, you're right. He's got as much to be angry with the Lannisters as he does. I don't think he's angry with Cersei. I think he feels ashamed because he was betraying the person he ended up loving.
Yeah, when he's wallowing in the bar, certainly. And I don't know. These are definitely connected. When he sees Dany being paraded around as this whore and this laughable thing, he's very upset by that.
Yeah.
So that would fall right in line with him still holding a candle for Dany and wanting to bring Tyrion to her.
All right.
Because that's going to be a great bargaining chip, right? I mean, well...
that's the thing.
What does he know about what's happened in King's Landing?
That's the thing. Like, I feel like his plan is very South Parkian. It's step one, kidnap Tyrion. Step two, question. Step three, Dany kisses me. It's like...
Yeah.
I don't know that he's really thought this through of what she will think about any of this.
So... maybe the bargaining chip goes the other way. Not that Cersei would want to have him back because it's her brother, but because she would like to have him killed. And he can win some favor by bringing that to Dany. Dany can get a meeting or something with Cersei. I don't know. I mean,
clearly there is... You could just look at the one way that Daenerys would love to kill one of the people that were an important member of the family that betrayed hers.
It seems like there are better uses.
They're all usurpers, right?
For a family member than just killing them.
Sure.
It's a pawn to be used. Killing your own pawns is not a great idea.
It does seem like that's been a consistent theme in the show too. Like if you kill a hostage, it's almost always seen as a stupid thing to do.
Yeah. I don't think Littlefinger would do that.
Even Ramsay Bolton wouldn't. He'll chop his
Yeah.
balls off and mutilate him, sure, but he's not going to kill Theon. That's a useful hostage.
Might as well kill Tyrion if you chop his balls off.
He's done it to himself. He
Yeah.
is mentally neutered himself.
You're right.
It's
You're
a
right.
sad state of affairs.
All right, that's it for the episode.